Hey, how's it going, everyone? Thank you for joining me on a new episode of the Music Reviewer Podcast. My name's Josh, and thanks for joining me on a new episode of Best and Worst Track of the Week on the Music Reviewer Podcast. If you're new to the Music Reviewer Podcast, thanks for joining me. I'm just a guy that loves music, enjoys talking about it, and I do album reviews frequently and also a weekly segment called Best and Worst Track of the Week, where I review new entries onto the Billboard Hot 100 and take one that's the worst and take one that's the best, and also grade the rest with the letter grade. Also, occasionally I do work the listens, which are just albums I've enjoyed in the past. But yeah, before we get started on this week's episode of Best and Worst Track of the Week, I just want to give everyone a little overview and rundown of the state of the podcast. Right now, the year's kind of winding down. We are pretty late in the year. We're already covering the week of November 21st. So basically, album reviews, they aren't necessarily sparse, but I'm not necessarily dying to cover anything right now. So, and also the general interest of the podcast, I think, is kind of at one of the lower points of the year, which to me kind of makes sense. People are probably a little bit less interested in hearing music commentary as we're all dealing with a once in 100-year pandemic, a pretty crazy election cycle that's kind of winding down, but there's still news about it constantly every day. And then also with the holidays coming up, people are probably just trying to spend more time around with their family and gear up for that. So yeah, that's all understandable. So if you see reviews slowing down, just kind of take it as me reading the room. I'll still try reviewing albums at a somewhat consistent pace, but like I said, there's nothing I'm really dying to review right now. I'm considering putting out some more worth the listens, which is something I'm actually looking forward to. But yeah, everyone knows that the winter months aren't necessarily known for putting out a plethora of new music releases as well. So just wanted to give everyone just a heads up. But nonetheless, let's go ahead and get into this week's best and worst track of the week. Overall on this week, it was pretty plentiful in terms of new entries. So very hip-hop centric, which makes sense because we kind of had many album bombs from the latest Kid Laroi album, which I don't know why he put 2 albums out this year. This could have easily just been put off till next year. And then also a couple tracks from that Nav surprise album too. A country track here from Darius Rucker that we'll get to in a sec. Some other anomalies from artists I've never really heard of either. But yeah, interesting stuff coming in. I'm not sure really how long most of it will last, but some highlights overall on this week's Best and Worst Track of the Week. Mood by 24K Golden and Ian Dior stayed at number 1, which kind of surprised me. I know the song just had a remix, but I didn't know the remix would give it that much of a boost. But yeah, still holding strong at number 1 is that. And then also we have a number 3 that's been steadily climbing. It's been here for 46 weeks on the chart. I Hope by Gabby Barrett and Charlie Puth. I haven't formally reviewed that song just because I think it came out a bit before I started the series. But yeah, it's been steadily climbing. I've been keeping an eye on it, but hey, I think it might end up pushing a little bit higher up. Some more news. WAP finally fell out of the top 10. It's at number 11. It's kind of interesting seeing that behemoth take a downturn. And then now also one of our first worst tracks of the week, Be Like That by Kane Brown, Sway Lee, and Khalid, still holding on, going up to number 20 this week. I just don't really see how this track is flirting with moving up higher and higher. It's a slow climb, but it's doing it. Same thing with AJR, Bang by AJR up to 24. It's now in the top quarter of the chart. So honestly, if it keeps on moving up, I'm not going to be surprised, but honestly, I'm surprised. Thus far, I am surprised it's made it this high, especially you don't necessarily think of AJR as being a mainstream pop band on the charts, even though they have a pretty cult-like following. Also, same thing with One Beer by Hardy, one of our worst tracks of the week. I think our first one, up to 33, steadily climbing. don't see how that's happening, but I also don't listen to much country radio nowadays. So, what I do like to see, though, is Pretty Heart by Parker McCollum up to 37 this week. That's another steady climber that I'm rooting for. He's one of our best tracks of the week some time ago. Another best track of the week some time ago that I've been watching, Midnight Sky by Miley Cyrus. I think got helped by a remix version from Stevie Nicks, if I'm correct. Up to 44 this week. I kind of see now this is on a trajectory possibly to get a little bit higher, but we'll have to wait and see on that. Also, 2 weeks ago, our worst track of the week, So Done by the Kid Laroi, up to 59 this week. I think it got a boost from that Baby album bomb, but still, I wouldn't be surprised if this gets higher, though, honestly. And then also, if you're coming from last week's positions review, most of the Ariana Grande stuff dropped out, but that's to be expected from most album bombs. But let's go ahead and get down to this first track this week, Fuck You, Goodbye, by the Kid Laroi featuring Machine Gun Kelly, coming in at 99. This was the better of the 3 Kid Laroi tracks this week. That's not saying much. The track opens up with a cheap-sounding synthetic guitar intro, a moody and angry performance from Laroi, but, you know, his vocal delivery to me is just a little off-putting. He's not a bad singer, but he just needs a little bit of refinement, I think. His vibrato is really distracting. There's some weak percussion sounds throughout the track that I think the track could do without. And the Machine Gun Kelly feature, honestly, he just seemed bored to be on this track. I think he just took a paycheck here. And then honestly, the songwriting here is just what gets to me. The hook is pretty oversimplified and as expected from most Kid Laroi tracks, and it's pretty dull. I give it a C. Next track was from an artist named CJ, titled Whoopty, coming in at 97. But yeah, I don't really know if this is his first time being on the charts like this. I certainly would have to familiar myself with his discography, but this isn't really a good introduction, to be honest. There's a highly annoying wailing vocal sample that immediately greets you and does not stop for literally the whole entire track. It's nice to see that this is using some drill beat influence, though. I like that part of the track. But I'm just kind of not convinced on the delivery and technical skill we see from CJ here. It seems like this is probably at his ceiling or close to his ceiling, which honestly, it's not very high compared to other rappers in the game right now. And that annoying ass sample just ruins the whole entire track. It just loops over and over, and it just ruins everything. It's also mixed way too high, and it doesn't really make the track very interesting or add to it in any effective manner. So I give this track a D+. Next track was an interesting one by Billie Eilish, Therefore I Am, coming in at 94. This track has an as expected aesthetic, a Billie Eilish aesthetic. Some attributes I like from the track is that there's this smooth melodic bass line supporting everything. It colors the track very well, almost like a zipper. She definitely utilizes and relies on her soft vocal approach on this performance, which is pretty normal in a Billie Eilish track, but it's a little one-dimensional, but it fits nicely in the track still. There's some also blown out, distorted qualities in the instrumental. I also like the electronic melodic ideas thrown in the instrumental as well. I thought this track was pretty good. I give it a B. This next track was titled Beer and Sunshine from Darius Rucker, coming in at 94. Honestly, this is a pretty interesting track because it seems like it was going for a summer sort of quality to it, and it's somehow being released now in November. But the track isn't very good, honestly. It utilizes a safe and sanitary approach in the songwriting and production. This track is just lacking in several different areas, and I give it a C-. Next track was from Nav and Gunna, coming in at 84, titled Young Wheezy. Haven't really covered too much Nav on this podcast, but if I have to be honest, Nav's a bit of a guilty pleasure of mine. I know in no way, shape, or form is he an upper tier rapper. There's something about him, though, that is just interesting. I don't really know what it is. This track, though, it's off his latest new album, which I think this is his third this year. those three, I don't think any of those projects have gotten any good positive critical acclaim. On this track though, Gunna sounds like he's trying to sound a bit like Young Thug at times, and then also throws in an obvious Travis Scott ad-lib that's ripped off. Don't know how they got away with that. The syncopated cheap guitar is an obvious indicator of this, and yeah, it's a song about beer and sunshine in November. The vocals here sound poorly mixed too. The track does have moments where the instrumentals sound a bit more rich and organic, but it quickly reverts back to a more sterile sound in the verses. And I just don't like the production on this. It sounds washed out on several points, and it doesn't really do much to bring out Darius Rucker's vocal talent on here, to accentuate it in any way that's captivating. In the production, I think the snare sounds a bit dry at times. There's a pretty static approach with Nav and Gunna using the same flow literally the whole entire track. It doesn't change or vary at all. The instrumental does have some nice light melodic qualities that color the track well, but they're mixed too low in my opinion. And it's just an okay song. I give it a C. Next track was All These N-Words featuring Lil Durk by King Vaughn. Coming in at 77. First time King Vaughn's on the top 40 charts, or charting in general, I think. He was a Chicago rapper that was unfortunately murdered earlier this month, so he did have a posthumous release that is doing well commercially, which it's sad at the same time, but it's always nice to see, I guess, some sort of recognition. And I honestly, this is my first introduction to King Vaughn's music. Honestly, I dig it. I dig the guy's aesthetic. Lil Durk's on this. I think he was King Vaughn was on Lil Durk's label. This track is based around a pretty standard rap minor key piano instrumental. In my opinion, the vocals sound mixed a bit low for some reason, but the track does rely on some gangster rap aesthetics, which are one of the qualities I dig about King Vaughn's music. I like the quirky synth embellishments on the track as well. Not the most captivating King Vaughn track I've covered this week, but it's still decent. I gave it a B. Next track came in at 76, Tragic, featuring YoungBoy Never Broke Again and Internet Money by Kid Laroi. This almost got worst track of the week. The production here sucks, in my opinion. I hate how Leroy's voice is mixed here. It sounds very small, undynamic, and washed out. The beat is pretty loopy and uninteresting, with like these piano chords being played on the downbeat very predictably. YoungBoy Never Broke Again doesn't fit well in this track at all, in my opinion. He's about on the same level as Kid Laroi in terms of captivating me. None of his better qualities come out on this track either. His delivery sounds slurred and indiscernible at times, and I don't hate this track as much as some other tracks I covered by the Kid Laroi this week, but it just doesn't sound that great in my opinion. I give it a D. Next track was by King Vaughn at 66, titled The Code, featuring Polo G. I thought this one was a chill track as well. There's a much more aggressive performance style here, almost drill beat-like as well. Some hard thug life aesthetics that coat the track. It's almost like a more authentic 6ix9ine track, which I hate to say it, but it seems like King Vaughn was a little influenced by 6ix9ine. To me, though, this just sounds like more genuine. 6ix9ine, his more aggressive thug gangster rap style is just an act. This feels just a little bit more real. The instrumental here is still pretty loopy, and it's overly reliant on a piano instrumental, but the Polo G feature sounds a bit like it's from a borrowed style that I couldn't quite put my finger on, but he sounds like he's doing a direct impression from some other rapper. I just couldn't put my finger on it. It wasn't bad though. I give this track a B. Next track was coming in at 65, Don't Need Friends, featuring Lil Baby by Nav. I thought this track was okay. There's a dark and moody aesthetic on this track. That fits in really well with Nav's typical style. His flow is pretty good and it's pretty rhythmic, but it features this typical static delivery and it's accentuated quite well at least. So he at least delivers it decently. Lil Baby doesn't execute nearly as well as Nav, but it's still not bad. His delivery is a little bit slurred and indiscernible too. So kind of what I found to be YoungBoy Never Broke Again's issue on the Kid Laroi feature, or on the Kid Laroi track. Overall, I didn't mind this track. I give it a B. Next one was Took Her to the O by King Vaughn at 47. This was the weaker of the three, in my opinion. This track I mentioned earlier, King Vaughn being somewhat of a influenced by 6ix9ine. This track was definitely, in my opinion, felt more derivative of the 6ix9ine style, especially in the flow, but without all the yelling. The instrumental isn't as interesting as the other tracks either. It's very repetitive and loopy. I thought it was just average. I give it a C. Next track was the highest charting one of the new entries, coming in at 35, by some artists that I didn't really see working together all on one track. What That Speed Bout by Mike Will Made It, Nicki Minaj, and YoungBoy Never Broke Again. It's just weird too, seeing YoungBoy Never Broke Again thrown in on all these features. This track though, there's a rhythmic, technical, and present performance from YoungBoy. It's pretty dynamic, featuring his rap singing. Nicki Minaj's feature features some different styles that she raps in. I think she kind of goes on like her character changes. Her flow's good and rhythmic. In my opinion, the track could have used more Minaj. And the beat has this unique style to it with some unorthodox textures and melodic material. I heard another person review saying that this was probably out of key. I wouldn't doubt it, but I'm not going to go into a whole analysis of that sort of thing. The track is at least captivating. I give it a B. Alright everyone, so we're at that point of the show where I go ahead and give you guys best and worst track of the week. We always start at worst track of the week, so we end on a positive note. And I kind of had to record this segment because when it came down to editing the episode, I noticed that none of what I had originally recorded for these two songs, the best and the worst track of the week, ended up actually sticking. For some reason, nothing was there, so that's why this episode's coming out pretty late. But anyways, worst track of the week goes to Always Do by the Kid Laroi. I kind of hinted at this at the beginning of the podcast. Just more sanitary and generic clean guitar utilization on the track. Some cheap snap percussive elements. A really tacky whistle embellishment thrown in as well. The instrumental honestly sounds like it belongs like on an MTV block of like music videos. Like the kind of music that was coming around in the 2000s, like this pop R&B style. It's kind of what it sounds like, what the Kid Laroi is singing over here, singing over on this track. And yeah, the track does kind of feature a more sensitive approach from Laroi, but just the songwriting elements on here. There's a do refrain where his voice just crackles. It's not very pleasing. And yeah, it's just this natural inflection in his voice when he forces this crackling, or the unrefinement in his being able to control his singing, really just what makes this song the worst of the week, in my opinion. It was quite obvious when I went through all three Kid Laroi tracks this week. So worst track of the week goes to Kid Laroi, with Always Do. Best track of the week, on the other hand, is Crazy Story 2.0 featuring Lil Durk by King Vaughn. Really digging the hard gangbang, thug life, gangster rap aesthetic here. King Vaughn's delivery is great. Great presence on the track as well. The instrumental doesn't have like this overbearing hi-hat sort of style either, which I find pretty rare nowadays with trap music. And then probably one of the better Lil Durk features I've heard on a track. He sounds honestly completely different here and fits well with this gangster rap aesthetic. Great overall mood on the track. The performances are captivating. I love the doubled vocal echo effect going on the vocals too, and on Vaughn's part. So yeah, overall a solid track. Probably the most consistent track on this week. We'll see what next week brings us. Possibly another album bomb coming next week from Lil Uzi Vert and Future. But until then, if you join me on this on this entire episode of Best Worst Track of the Week, thank you. And I hope to see you guys next week, or hopefully you guys tune in next week, and be on the lookout for some stuff coming out. I know as mentioned earlier, the podcast would be slowing down a little bit, but I have a worth a listen down the pipeline, and we're at a new week, so that means more albums to review. So hopefully I'll get back into some sort of consistent swing. But nonetheless, if you chose to listen to the Music Reviewer podcast today, thanks for joining. If you're on YouTube, leave some feedback, like and subscribe if you're digging it. If you're just on a regular streaming service, subscribe to me there too. But yeah, take care of yourself. See y'all later.